This Israel report is brought to you by the Blue Agency. Your Israel property is in good hands. Owning properties in Israel can be a great investment, but challenging to manage if you're based abroad. The Blue Agency will manage every aspect of your property, finding and vetting tenants, maintaining your property and getting it rental ready, negotiating contracts and collecting rentals, reporting back to you regularly. The Blue Agency has built a reputation for trust and confidentiality over 20 years. The Blue Agency, your Israel property is in good hands. Contact us at www.theblueagency.com.
The Israel Report for the latest news and insights with Anthony Reich.
Anthony Reich, Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. How are you?
Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Howard, with your permission, I'd like to start this morning and this week with a quotation that caught my eye, and I thought that listeners might be interested to hear it. The quotation goes as follows: "I would rather live here with ongoing fighting than be part of a wandering Jewish people, because I have zero intention of telling my grandchildren of a Jewish state that existed in the 20th century as a short passing episode in a millennia of wandering Jews." That was a quotation from the late Yoni Netanyahu, who was killed at Entebbe exactly 50 years ago. Of course, the older brother of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he was the only casualty amongst that amazingly daring maneuver that the IDF carried out in order to rescue Israeli hostages, Jewish hostages, who were held as part of a plane hijacking that was taken to Entebbe. That's a fascinating story,
It really is.
and it's incredible that 50 years have gone by. I have to admit that I actually remember what went down at Entebbe. I remember when it actually happened and how astonishing the operation was then. And when we look back 50 years and we see what was done then, first of all, unfortunately, the story has repeated itself with hostages being taken, Jewish hostages being taken and held against their will by terrorists just because they're Jews, and the IDF coming in, even though it was such a long distance for them to have to travel all the way to Uganda. And the way in which the whole operation was carried out, people who are not familiar with the story, I think would be fascinated to read the books and see the movies, of which there are numerous. And I think it's important for us to remember 50 years since Entebbe and an incredible rescue.
Absolutely unbelievable. Ceremonies have been taking place in Iran to bury the former supreme leader. What do we know?
Well, I mean, what we know is that this funeral ceremony or ceremonies, this is something that's going on for days and days. All of yesterday and today, we already see ceremonies taking place in Tehran, even today. What's interesting for me is the fact that there is a certain level of nervous tension about whether these ceremonies and the public showing of various individuals may present something of a security risk to senior people in Iran. And on the one hand, we have seen people from the security establishment make public appearances for the first time. Over the last 4 months, there have been some notable appearances from people who haven't seen out in public for months and months and months already, who've clearly been hiding away for fear that they might be at risk. And of course, the supreme leader himself, we know, was holed up in some sort of a security arrangement, but that it was breached by Israel, and he was ultimately murdered in what seemed to be a relatively, I mean, I don't want to denigrate the operation that was carried out, because it was clearly highly sophisticated and with incredible intelligence and accuracy. And, you know, this was an operation that also, hopefully one day the story will be told about exactly how it happened. But it was incredible how successful and how accurate it was, that at the first time of asking, the attack was carried out and the supreme leader was killed, and they've waited months and months and months to get to this moment where they feel comfortable enough to come out in public and to bury him. Having said all of that, there is one person who's notably absent from all of this, and that is one of the supreme leader's sons, Mujtaba Khamenei, who is the new supreme leader, having already skipped one supreme leader in the middle. And he, not one supreme leader in the middle, I apologize. He succeeded his father directly, and was also reported to have been quite badly injured in the attack that killed his father. We haven't seen him in public at all since that occasion, even though he's been pronounced as the new supreme leader. And his brothers were out yesterday in public showing themselves and being relatively brave, I would think, in terms of being willing to come out in public as they have done. But the Iranian establishment is not quite that foolish, or maybe brash enough to put the new supreme leader out in public. So we are told that he has been kept back because of security reasons, and they're not allowing him to attend any of these ceremonies for his father's burial. And one wonders whether the excuse of the security risk is not potentially hiding the fact that he's still quite seriously injured. We are not exactly sure of his physical and mental state. All we know is that he's officially been declared as the new supreme leader. His brothers seem to be quite okay and functional. There's no issue about their safety or their well-being. But Mujtaba himself has not been seen at all since his father's murder, and he apparently will not be participating in any of these ceremonies for the burial of the supreme leader. So this is being allowed to go ahead. And what's interesting as well is that the organizers of these ceremonies seem to have really conjured up a great deal of anti-Israel, anti-American sentiment, even though the talks are ongoing between Iran and America. There have been screens of death to Israel and death to America, not only at the ceremonies themselves, but also I saw a video of a train station in Tehran where people were standing on the platform screaming death to America, death to Israel. So this sentiment has really been pushed out as much as possible to coincide with the funeral ceremonies that are taking place not only in Tehran, but indeed elsewhere across the country. So this is a moment when I think America and Israel are sitting back and watching very carefully, using whatever intelligence they can to gather information about the various individuals, where they are, what they're up to, when they come out, what they look like in terms of their physical well-being and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that this is all very, very valuable information, even if they are not necessarily going to act on it right away.
How can Donald Trump pretend that there's any form of peace or move in that direction when you have a authorized and probably encouraged and required screaming of death to America, death to Trump, death to Israel? It just seems so strange to me.
I agree that it seems very strange. And, one of the things that we've really seen in recent times is how public the sentiments are being made, even while talks are ongoing. I mean, we've seen very strange things like, J.D. Vance getting on a plane, or Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner getting on a plane to come and talk to Iran. But even before they get on the plane, the Iranians are saying there won't be a meeting. We don't want to meet with them. We're not interested in negotiating. And yet they get on the plane and they travel to wherever they go to, Switzerland or Pakistan or wherever it is, to go. I mean, these are all quite strange things. And in days of diplomacy in the past, the moment words like that would have been uttered, nobody would have dared to get on a plane in order to try and push through this and make the meeting happen in any event. So all of this seems to be kind of par for the course now. It all seems to be sort of an accepted standard that there is this public rhetoric, and the social media goes wild with lots and lots of anti, while behind the scenes, it might not necessarily be quite all that. But it's very hard to know exactly what's being said in those closed rooms and how much of that is reflected on the streets or the other way around. Very, very difficult to know. President Trump seems to be very determined to push towards some sort of a peace agreement almost at any price. At the moment, we still don't see it, but we also don't really see much appetite for renewing the conflict. So I suspect that this is going to go in the direction of a peace at any cost sort of arrangement. That at least is what the indications are right now.
A number of Israelis were arrested when they attempted to breach Israel's border with Syria. What is going on here?
Well, I mean, this is a group of people who have put themselves together who seem very determined to set up a Jewish settlement beyond Israel's border with Syria in Syrian territory. And they crossed from the Israeli buffer zone on the Syrian side of Mount Hermon, actually into Syrian territory, and tried to somehow move even further into to Syrian territory in order supposedly to set up a Jewish settlement there in that area, just on the other side of Mount Hermon. And they claim that this is something that they are determined to do, and that they believe that military presence is not enough to secure Israel's safety, but some sort of civilian settlement needs to be part of the overall safety zone that Israel sets up with Syria. And to that extent, they're determined to somehow set up Jewish presence in Syria. They've said if we do not integrate civilian settlement into the military grip, we may find ourselves in a situation similar to that along the Lebanese border. And we need to show the government that we are determined to stay here. Now, while there might well be some political accuracy to the statements that they make, clearly what they're doing is particularly unhelpful. It doesn't help the IDF, who are already stretched in that particular area and on other borders of Israel. And the IDF, unfortunately, have been forced to deploy themselves to arrest these individuals and to make sure that they stay safe, not only because we don't want to create a diplomatic incident with Syria unnecessarily, but also because these people's personal safety needs to be assured. There's nobody who can assure their personal safety if they cross over and start to set up a settlement in Syria. That clearly doesn't work very well, not from their safety and not from a diplomatic point of view. So I think it's all very unfortunate that the IDF's forces are being impelled to deal with this when they really have much, much more important things that they should be dealing with. And yet, when people come to some political ideology and they see an opportunity, they seem to just want to seize the moment without necessarily thinking through the consequences in a particular way. So, while they may, people may well agree with their overall point of view, I think what they're doing right now is just not a good idea at all, and not helpful to anybody.
Absolutely. Finally, and this is just the most incredible story, a couple got married after being held hostage in Gaza. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so here we're talking, of course, about Sasha Trufanov and Sapir Cohen, who were a couple before they were kidnapped from Kibbutz Nir Oz. They were visiting Kibbutz Nir Oz, where Sasha's parents lived. He was kidnapped. Sapir, who was wrapped in a blanket and hidden under a bed in order to try and protect her, was also kidnapped to Gaza. Sasha's mother was also kidnapped to Gaza. His father was killed on October the 7th in that attack. And I believe that his grandparents were also kidnapped into Gaza, all of them held as hostages. Now, Sapir was released after about 50 days as a hostage, 55 days, I think, to be accurate, while Sasha remained a hostage for more than 400 days. And he told Sapir that while he was a hostage in Gaza, he prayed that she would not wait for him because he didn't believe that he would stay alive in order to return back home. And he prayed for her that she would find somebody else in order to make herself happy. And yet, as it turns out, she did wait for him. And a year after Sasha was released, they got married yesterday. And attending the wedding was President Isaac Herzog, who told the couple how people in Israel had prayed for their return and that ultimately when they came back, how much joy and how many tears were shed. And ultimately, the couple have now come together. They were under the chuppah together, and we hope that they will build a Beit Ne'eman B'Israel. They will build a home to build a family. It's a real miracle that the two of them not only managed to survive their time in Gaza, but that the relationship and the love that they had for each other that was there before all of this took place, and clearly during the time that they were held captive, has endured until this moment when they finally got married.
Yeah, she was in South Africa, and I was listening to her speak, and he wasn't obviously released at that point. And I have to say, I listened thinking, what are the chances? What are the chances that this couple will actually, that he will be saved, and that they'll get together, and over the weekend them being married is just such an incredible closure and end to that story. It is really miraculous.
And it was quite amazing to see the number of former hostages who actually were attending the wedding. Eitan Horn and Ariel Cunio and Arbel Yehud, many of theirs who were held captive in Gaza, getting together at the wedding to celebrate. I think that is the greatest victory.
Absolutely. Anthony Reich, thank you as always. Beautiful end to this morning's Israel Report. We can catch Anthony tomorrow morning, 7:45.
That Israel Report was brought to you by the Blue Agency. Your Israel property is in good hands. Owning properties in Israel can be a great investment, but challenging to manage if you're based abroad. The Blue Agency will manage every aspect of your property, finding and vetting tenants, maintaining your property and getting it rental ready, negotiating contracts and collecting rentals, reporting back to you regularly. The Blue Agency has built a reputation for trust and confidentiality over 20 years. The Blue Agency, your Israel property is in good hands. Contact us at www.theblueagency.com.